Welcome back out to Patman Garage. We are playing with Fiddy's instrument cluster today. God, it's probably been 3 or 4 years since I was building the truck, and I bought the 4.5 inch display screen, basically a brand new cluster. So I went through and did a bunch of forescan changes to turn off a bunch of settings that I don't have, and disabled as many warning lights as possible. So here's the current situation. Here's the display. It's a 4.5 inch productivity screen. Obviously, it's not the full like 8 or 9 inch cluster that the Lariats came with, but big upgrade. Have a color display. Have I'll have the more modern fuel display style, which will be nice. And yeah, we'll see how this goes. So this cluster will need to get cut down and disassembled and then put into the O3 shell, but this is a good start. So I'll start cutting it up and update y'all here in a minute. Alright, so the first step is we got to pull this cluster apart. I pulled a bunch of screws off the back of it, and we should be ready to disassemble it. Once I get this thing apart, we're going to pull basically cut as much of the old shell off as possible, get down to the basic circuit board and display, and then we'll get it inserted into the shell of the O3 cluster. Alright, so when I built this cluster many years ago, I had to sacrifice the actual lens of the donor display so that I could have the background, or I guess technically the front ground shroud of the cluster. So that comes all as one piece from Ford. It's actually glued, plastic welded together. So it appears that this is identical to the one I've already cut up. So now I can technically just save this whole piece, set it off to the side, save it for another day for another project, or in case I scratch my daily driver. But anyways, this is the main circuit board we're after, the main display. So from here, pretty much what I need to do is cut off the bottom sections here up until I hit the circuit board, so it'll fit inside the shell, and then we'll start disassembling this guy and transferring stuff over and see if there's anything else we need to trim. Anyways, so I got my lens display removed off of the O3. You can see there's several different layers in here. So this is the original shroud piece on the back of the O3 lens. We'll hang on to that guy. And then this is the shroud display portion of the 15 in here. So we're going to try to transfer that over to the new one and see how that goes. And then this is the back of the O3 hybrid cluster. I went ahead and pulled the screws out of the back portion of this. Interestingly enough, the new cluster has a black backing, and the old cluster old 2015 cluster had a white backing. I don't know if that was to indicate the difference in the displays, or they just changed something mid-production run, or what, I don't know. But we're going to pull this guy off because the screws that hold this guy on also sandwich the faceplate together. So we'll flip this guy back over, and now this should be ready to come off, minus a tab at the bottom down here. Alright, I got my tab removed, and that just lifts off. So that is the base display for the 15. So now this should just come apart into two pieces. Should be just kind of sitting in there. because everything was sandwiched together. There we go. All right, so the good news is all the legwork has already been done of cutting and test fitting and notching and all that. So basically what we're going to need to do is take our new 18 display here, and we're going to need to cut the bottom of it off until it matches this guy, and then that's it. So the question is, while I'm doing this, should I keep my blue needles or should I keep my white needles? What do you think? Leave me a comment in the comment section. Let me know, blue or white, and we'll see how this goes. So my original thought I was going to cut this. Then after I got the Dremel out, my idea was, well, I'm transferring everything else. Maybe I could just transfer the back, that middle white core section. So I went ahead and disassembled this guy, and they're different because of the way the display plugs in here, right in here. So unable to transfer the inner shell, but I should be able to cut this off at a reasonable amount of time, since that's only the one piece I'm cutting. So we'll get this guy chopped up and reassembled. So I started by cutting the actual display lens part, and that should be my cut line of how much I need to cut off. But when you look at it in person or disassembled like this, you realize how much taller that cluster really is and how much had to be cut out. So we'll get this dude chopped up and start reassembling. So got it chopped up, got it reassembled, at least the back half is, and I wiped it down because I had a lot of fingerprints on it, but we'll start putting needles back on. I think I'm going to prefer the blue ones or the white ones for now. So the way I've done this in the past is if you kind of like half install it, you can feel for the motor and then make sure that the motor is turned all the way down, if that makes sense. Basically, I want to make sure the needle's lined up correctly. So if you half install it, you can feel like the stop is right there. So I actually want to go just a hair past that, because the needles actually rest just below zero. That's what I'm aiming for, is just below zero, and we got just below zero there. And same thing over here. And I install this guy on here, and kind of rotate as you go down. You can feel that the stop on the motor. Perfect. May have over pressed on this guy, so you got to watch your depth on him. So this one's actually touching the cluster display, and you want just a little bit of an air gap. So I actually need to come down on this one and probably back up on this one just a hair. But I'll play with this, and I'll get my other 4 gauges across the top done, and then we'll fully reassemble. Got all my needles situated, so we can fully set this guy off to the side now. We don't need him. And then this should just drop into what's left of the 03 shell. We may have to do a little bit of test fitting here, but it should fit in there. Well, test fit didn't go quite as planned because I found out I've got 2 more sections I need to remove. So one on this corner and one on this corner, and that was done on the old one. I just missed it in my initial inspection, so we'll get these cut up and then we'll test fit again. Fully reassembled. It's looking sharp. Happy with that. And we'll get it cleaned up one more time on the lens, and then it should be ready to be test fit back in the truck. So I got the cluster installed. It seems to be sitting just a hair higher than it used to, because I'm seeing a little bit more white down here, and then the gauges are just buried just a little bit more. It'll work for now. I may take it back apart at some point and play with it and see if I can't get the 18 cluster to settle down a little bit more, but I'm plenty happy with the way it is right now. It will work, and as you remember, most of these gauges are kind of redundant because I have the water and trans temp up there, so and these are definitely more accurate than the stupid factory dummy gauges are. So I've got fuel right in the middle, which is now supposed to be working a little bit better now that I did the tank reworking the tank sensor. So we should be good to go. I can finish installing the trim and then get back to doing some of my other projects I was in here doing. Well, that's kind of a bummer. So finally got the cluster all done and back together, and figured out after doing a test drive that apparently the cluster is a newer style with the 10-speed, and she's not too happy. So it's kind of goofy, but the good news is the paddle shifters are working now. So made some progress, but still have more work to do. So I guess for now I'm going to probably put the old cluster back in the truck, and we'll keep going. So with the new cluster, which again I really like the look of it, but it's tachometer's not working, which is kind of funky, and the gear indicators, if I drop a gear, it'll pull off 10th and 9th together with one paddle click. And then if I paddle again, it drops 7th and 8th together, and then drops 5th and 6th together. What's weird is while it's doing all of this, the truck is actually showing the correct gear on the highlighted portion of the cluster. So kind of funky, but we'll swap back to the other cluster for now and see if I can find a appropriate 15 to 17 with the 4.5-inch screen. So I'll keep my eyes peeled for one online, but I like the look. Definitely looks better than the bluish greenish display. So but I definitely need to have a working tachometer if I'm going to be running the paddles in